Greetings! In the previous video, I explained why I sold Ethereum and I'm expecting the market to drop. Now let's figure out if anything has changed since then. I'll also share 2 trading ideas that won't leave you indifferent and will let you profit no matter where the market goes up or down. Let's start with the changes in the market. Let's take a look at what has happened. On the daily time frame, Bitcoin is in an uptrend. The trend was broken. This was already apparent while I was recording my previous review. But what interesting things have happened since then? Here are the support and the resistance levels that were marked back then. And here it is the support level at that time, which was broken. It was from that level that I suggested you close your positions and start taking shorts. It was broken and you could have even entered on the retest. After that, the price continues to move down. The price hasn't yet reached the next market support level at $102,000. And it starts to bounce back a little above that level. I get a message in my DMs. What happened there? Is the market really reversing? Is it really going to get bought up here and head back up? Let's figure it out. First of all, on the hourly chart, this bounce is very minor and essentially means nothing. Yes, here the local downtrend was broken in the moment and we see a bounce from there, but it's nothing serious. Let's remember how the market works, how trends work. You will almost never see a steady single trend all the time. There are always some counter-trend moves, some periods of consolidation, maybe some patterns or setups, and then the market reverses and continues along the trend. The fact remains that on a higher time frame, on the daily chart, if we zoom out, the trend was broken and the downward trend is just beginning to form. This will be a counter-trend move, it will be a corrective move, but it won't lead to any significant downward movement. Sorry for the tautology. In other words, the decline is likely to be minor. We might end up somewhere in the $90,000 to $100,000 range, and from there we'll see at what point buyers step in. But definitely not something this small. So it's clear that the decline will continue. That's an obvious thought. But let's take a closer look. Obviously a bottom has to form somewhere, and what if it actually forms right here? How can we understand this? Let's take a look at the rest of the market. What's happening with altcoins, and does the market have any strength at all? Ethereum is also bouncing back a little, forming a wedge here. In this case, the wedge is trading downward, breaking to the downside. This pattern signals a continuation of the trend. It's a bearish pattern. Let's move on. Binance Coin is barely bouncing back and isn't showing anything interesting so far. And by the way, I didn't emphasize this earlier, but with Bitcoin, we've reached the 50-period moving average, the 50 MA on the hourly time frame. And it's from there that the selling starts. Yes, at the moment, the seller seems to have run out of steam, but now they're starting to become more active here. To also understand how strong this movement is and what potential it has going forward, let's take a look at this moment, at this fragment. As soon as we reached the support level, the buyer became active here, which wasn't visible before, but it's clear that the seller was stronger. That is, there were several retests clearly approaching this level. Here, the seller defended their position. Obviously, this hints at a strong downtrend. In a downtrend, the highs will keep getting lower in any case. So it's unlikely, highly improbable, that the price will break above $106,000. Most likely, somewhere around here, well, maybe just a little higher, it will stop. Alright. Let's move on with the market. For the past 2 years, I've been trading on the Bybit exchange. It's the #1 platform in terms of trading volume and liquidity. That means your orders will be executed here at the best prices and with minimal slippage. Just on this alone, you'll be saving several $100s a month compared to trading on any other exchange. In addition, the fees here are low, and if you register using my referral link in the description, you'll receive a bonus from $50,000 to $30,000 depending on the size of your deposit. Go ahead and follow the link in the description right now. Then click this button and see the size of the bonus you receive for registering. On average, my subscribers receive about $100 for registering on the Bybit exchange. But if you have a large deposit and a corresponding trading volume, you can get up to $30,000 as a bonus. The link is below. Register, it only takes a few minutes. Ethereum, Binance Coin, nothing special here. But with Ethereum, it's clear there's a downward setup. Next is ADA. Let's look at all of this on the hourly chart, so you don't panic about what's happening with the trends on the hourly time frame. ADA here, we have the nearest resistance level. We haven't even reached it for a retest. Well, there's some small local level here. Even now, during the rebound, we're not even close to reaching them. If it does approach, if it gets there, then selling starts somewhere around here, and you can see that overall the trend is downward. There's a very large, strong downward pattern at descending triangle. The minimum target for that same triangle on ADA is about 0.6. During the drop, it reached 0.66, so that's still at least another 10 to 15% decline just based on the technicals. Let's move on. Solana, here, there's actually a double top. Some might even see a diamond pattern here with volatility first expanding, then contracting. This is a reversal pattern, even if you don't consider it as a double top. So this thing should play out downward in any case. By the way, take a look at Solana on the hourly chart. Notice how nicely, for example, this pattern looked during the uptrend. It's a bull flag, just a classic bull flag. Yes, it's highly volatile, but still, this thing trades upward in the direction of the previous trend. And look at how well it played out. And now there's an even stronger pattern, a reversal one, and it's even more pronounced drawn out. So here, maybe a head and shoulders pattern could form somewhere and it could go even further down, so the potential for decline is high. Litecoin, for example, dropped even more sharply. And by the way, for it, this pattern didn't particularly bearish. It was actually more like a bullish flag. And even Litecoin, which didn't show a super bearish setup, crashed and crashed harder than many other coins. NEO, let me highlight the descending triangle as well, in case anyone doesn't see it. It crashed. Yes, right now it's bouncing back a bit, but it hasn't even reached the minimum take profit level. Not even the minimum take profit, which is around the 5.25 mark. I drew it a bit higher here than it actually is, somewhere around here. So the minimum take profits are lower in any case, no matter which coin you look at. For example, Ethereum Classic also has a descending triangle, same thing. We're just now starting to break downwards. Yeah, someone might draw it like this and say it's a bullish flag, but the bullish flag shouldn't almost go past the previous low. Here, pay attention. You can draw the trend like this. First of all, the trend line would be broken here. Secondly, the low was almost updated. So look at how high the next ascending high was when the trend was still relevant. Even if the price stops here and goes somewhere up here, can you really consider this an ascending low within this trend? Well, this is only perhaps a broadening wedge, which is also a pattern that essentially is traded downward in this case. So there's absolutely no hint of strength here on a global scale. I accidentally deleted the moving averages. Let's move on. John, let's take a closer look here. This is one of the trading ideas I wanted to focus your attention on. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned two trading ideas that won't leave you indifferent. Here's the first one, Tron, on the daily time frame. Let's see what's happening here. I've already made a couple of comments. Yes, here it is a vertical spike, a vertical takeoff. Then there's a U-shaped decline. There was a level, it was broken, and we consolidated above it. There are also higher lows here. And in general, this pattern usually trades for a breakout to the upside, a new high. After a surge, when we see this kind of U-shaped bottom, it's a buying opportunity. But the thing is, if the market starts to fall, as I expect and as I'm generally talking about now, it's clear that Tron won't close out this U-shape and won't make a new high. But if I turn out to be wrong, you'll notice it first of all with the Tron TRX coin. Pay attention to the daily time frame, and here we have the resistance level. If I turn out to be wrong and you see tomorrow, the day after, or in the coming days that the market starts to recover more strongly and Tron reaches and consolidates above this level, that will be a long signal, and you should enter a long position here and profit from the vertical takeoff that, according to the pattern, should occur. So if I am wrong, this is the trade you should pay attention to first and foremost. Add Tron to your watch list or jot it down somewhere on a piece of paper and keep an eye on it. If I'm wrong, you will notice it here first and will be able to profit even from this upward movement. Let's move on. Bitcoin Cash, let's switch to the 1 hour time frame again. Let me remind you, we're discussing the presence of any kind of strength, and this is probably the only coin that is still holding up relatively well. Yes, on the hourly chart, there's even some kind of upward trend remaining here. It hasn't dropped much, but pay attention, this is the first coin out of almost a dozen we've just looked at that is showing any strength. Even Tron, which looks good on the daily chart, on the hourly look, here's the ascending triangle, and it broke downward. It seemed like the strongest coin. So the first coin with a more or less positive outlook is Bitcoin Cash. And when the majority of coins, the overwhelming majority, are in, let's say, a weak state, it indicates market weakness. If most coins looked more or less like Bitcoin Cash, I would still consider the possibility that the correction would be quite small and that it would be coming to an end around here. But no, let's move on. Zcash, well, it bounced back more or less decently, yes, but still it reached the resistance level, and from here, selling begins. Of course, you could also take a closer look at this coin from the perspective of whether it will break through this resistance. But most likely it won't. In fact, according to my trading system, this is the ideal entry point for a short position. Here, accordingly, the trend was reversed. The market dropped significantly. Here, it bounced back to the nearest support, then reached the resistance. This is a retest. All the moving averages are here, the seller comes in, and right on the retest you can get a good entry point for a short. Well, the highs here were descending anyway, but overall this is a flat, and after the flat comes a trend reversal. Nothing out of the ordinary. So right here you can enter a short with a very tight stop, literally just right here. You shouldn't set it right behind this level, it could just get knocked out a little higher. You can also take a look at this, but this isn't the trading idea I mentioned at the beginning. The next trading idea after Tron is the coin Dash. Let's switch to the daily time frame. Dash is one of the old coins that's currently around its all-time low. Of course, it has been even lower because it practically soared from $0 to $400. Yeah, let me show you a chart from an old exchange, say Poloniex, for example. You can see there that, of course, it was even lower at some point back in 2016, but basically, if you don't take that into account back when hardly anyone knew anything about crypto in 2016, this is the all-time low, and coins that reach their all-time low during a downward bear market, in a period when the market is moving down impulsively, usually break through their all-time low with a huge impulse, typically by about 50%. And what can we say about Dash? It's an altcoin, not some new meme coin or scam coin. It's a coin with a long history, a long trading history, and some background. And in this case, it looks so bearish, even though the market itself seems to be bullish. I mean, Bitcoin, yes, at the moment we're discussing that the market will fall, but that's simply because it's starting to correct from its highs. I'm saying that it won't drop by 90%. No, there will just be a small correction somewhere lower, and after we short, we can buy back in and sit comfortably until the next all-time high. But Dash isn't reacting at all. It's sitting near its all-time low. And it just so happens that this coin has a history, a background. There are a lot of holders here. Recently, there was a 200% surge from the current level with record volume. So people jumped in at $70, right up here at the highs. And what happens when people fly here on FOMO? Yes, this kind of drop happens. And that's it. People didn't have time to set stop losses, and there's nowhere to put stop losses here. It's just a vertical spike with record volume. There's simply nowhere to set stop losses under this vertical spike. So people just end up holding and waiting it out. It dropped 50% on them. Oh no, what to do? It's unclear. Well, then it starts trading there, and maybe people are averaging down somewhere around here. There wasn't much volume anymore, but as you can see, there was still some spikes here. Some averaging down is happening here. So people were building positions right at the highs right here. And what happens next? Then bam, breakdown of support. Let's take a look. Did anyone actually exit on this support breakdown? What were the volumes during the support breakdown? Well, what were the volumes? Basically none. So here there were record volumes, here people bought more, but here nothing. That is, people weren't placing stop losses below the support. Well, of course, some people did, but not nearly as many as those who entered at the very highs. And what am I getting at? I'm saying that people got trapped here. They're now stuck in this coin, possibly because a huge number of people jumped in with large volumes, and now it's unclear what to do with this coin. And there's not much demand for it, while the supply is high. A lot of people rushed into the market, which is exactly why it's not growing and is getting squeezed toward its all-time low. But everyone who bought in here will, at some point, start locking in their losses, cutting their losses, and this will happen specifically at the all-time low level. When that level is broken, a huge number of holders start selling, and there are a lot of stop losses and liquidations triggered as well. And that's just how the market works. When a coin breaks through its all-time low, it usually drops by about 50% in similar situations. Well, I don't know. Let me show you Omi's Go. As an example, I'm not going to comment on its current surge, okay? Here is the all-time low, and you can see the price being squeezed against the all-time low. And in this case, it's not just a squeeze here, the price dropped vertically. It would seem that it's already dropped by 50% here. Where else could it possibly fall, right? But that's just how it works when it approaches the all-time low. Bam! In a weak market, that's another 50% down, right? Let me show you more on the left. Let me show you the chart. Here's the all-time low. This time, the market approaches it not sharply, but gradually squeezes up to the all-time low, and then bam, a sudden drop of 25% in just a few days. It paused for a bit and then continued with another 40% drop in just a few days. This is roughly how the market reacts to setups like this, including Dash. What am I getting at? You don't necessarily have to short somewhere around here, but if the market really does start to fall and correct, Dash is a very weak coin, it's near its all-time low, and it should drop sharply downward. If it falls by about 50%, that's where you should set your buy orders and start accumulating, and that will be very close to excellent buying prices. Yes, it's unlikely that there will be any new highs here by hundreds of dollars, it's unlikely to skyrocket, and it's unlikely to give you dozens or hundreds of X's. But even just from the current level, recently, just now at the end of last year, not back in 2021 or a long time ago, no. Right at the end of last year, at the end of 24, it gave just 200% due to being oversold from the current level. Well, just imagine what would happen if you didn't buy the coin at $20 and sell it at $70, but instead bought it at $10, for example. So in the event of a drop, there will be an excellent entry point here. You buy at 10 and then just wait for some kind of upward spike. At the very highs, there will be a lot of people buying in, jumping in. That's when you'll be selling to them. It's simple. So in case of a drop, take a closer look at the Dash coin. If I turn out to be wrong, you'll see it with the TRX coin. Remember what I promised? Here are two ideas that will let you make money regardless of the market direction. If the market goes up, if I'm wrong, then take Tron long, it will break its high and you'll make a profit. If I'm right, take a look at Dash. It will dip, and you'll have a great opportunity to buy more and profit from the rise. I'm not saying to short anywhere here, because it's also unclear from which exact level it will drop, since that level is very vague here. And here the buyer's range is actually quite large. Here it is, you see, where the peaks are, where people entered and bought here. So it's not really clear where exactly to take a short here, but after a drop you can react to it. Alright, let's move on. As for Dash itself, yes, let's look at the hourly chart to see what's happening. It broke through the trend. Nothing extraordinary, nothing super bullish. Then we have Monero, a very bullish coin, right? The question is, how strong is the market right now? Not at all. The supposedly super bullish coin Monero has broken its upward trend, which it had been following almost perfectly, and it's not even bouncing back, not even a little. Moreover, it's pressing down toward the support level. Here's our support level, it bounced off it before, right? And now it's pressing down toward it again. Let me remind you that when the market crashes, yes, there was something here that even looked like a flash crash, it doesn't bounce back much. And after it presses down toward the support again, the same support it bounced off after the flash crash, it usually breaks through it. And here, soon there will be a new low well, Omisego. That's understandable, it's just because it's oversold. Yes, by the way, I just showed Omisego as an example for Dasha coin that absolutely nobody needs, and it keeps setting new lows, lower and lower. But look, Omisego too, it would seem that nobody needs it either, right? Yet sometimes it has shot up from the bottom by as much as 200%, and it's so heavily oversold that even in a weak market today, it managed to show a 60% gain. Yes, that move has already almost completely deflated. Yes, of course it will deflate back down again. Everyone who got trapped here will stay in the market and will actually become the fuel for Omisego to break through another all-time low and drop another 50%. Well, if you compare Dash and Omisego, of course, Dash is several times better. Well, XRP is still holding up pretty well. But also pay attention, it's already dropping below the moving averages here. The local rising lows have been broken and the highs are descending. Basically, this 300% pump happened almost without any resistance. And that means there's just a huge price gap here. There's nothing to hold on to. If a drop starts, it could be vertical. Be careful. Stellar is the same story. Well, at least it looks similar to XRP. It always moves together with it. The coin is connected to XRP, and yes, in this case, Stellar is significantly weaker than XRP. Look, there's no overall support holding here, unlike say over here. In general, there's nothing good going on. The coin is falling and not bouncing back at all. So the market looks weak, yes, and I won't waste too much of your time just skipping through coins and focusing on something important. I'll draw your attention to that. You see, everything is falling here. The bounce is minimal, barely noticeable. You could even say it's not really happening at all. A little bounce, yes, over the course of an hour something looks okay, kind of holding up, but it's just a rebound, no changes, no reversal. Moreover, here at the end of my list I have a number of coins that are also close to their all-time lows, which drop significantly after breaking through their ascending lows. And for which market is this typical? A bull market or a bear market? Well, that's a rhetorical question, I think it's clear to everyone. Here, it's not just a strong breakout after setting a new low, or rather after breaking out of the trend. This is still happening with bearish engulfing patterns. If you look, it's exactly precisely BAM bearish engulfing patterns. For which market is this typical? Well, if anyone didn't get it, it's for a bear market. Naturally, there is no bear market for Bitcoin and top coins. The bear market is only in terms of all time, but this is not the behavior of a strong market. At the very least, it's not strong, and Bitcoin will continue to correct further. Well, that's it. And after that, the pairs against Bitcoin started moving. There is no positivity at the moment. I give you 2 trading ideas to consider, Evan. If I'm wrong, you'll still make a profit. Well, you can find links to my other social networks below Telegram, Instagram accounts. I post more content there, and there's a more or less decent section for feedback with comments. You can also DM me on Instagram, which is useful because you can't send screenshots on YouTube. I want to encourage you, if you've made a profit or are holding some cool positions with good P&L, send me your screenshots in DMs or in the Telegram comments. That really motivates me, and maybe I'll show up on YouTube more often. As you can see, I've been more active here lately. So thank you for watching, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to try it out, click the link below. That's where I trade, I recommend trading there, register and get a bonus on your deposit. So good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck.